Years ago, I worked with a manager who used to do something that I could not explain at the time, but never forgot. I would bring him an idea, something real, something I had thought through. He would half listen, nod, and move on. Then, 3 or 4 days later, he would come back to me and tell me the exact same idea, like it had just occurred to him. I told him once, "Hey, I actually suggested that last week." He looked at me and said, "Oh, really? I don't remember." After that happened a few more times, I stopped bringing ideas altogether. Not because I ran out of them, because I ran out of the belief that it was worth it. And here's the uncomfortable truth I want to share with you today. That moment, that quiet decision to stop, that is when an organization actually loses someone, not the day they resign, the day they stop believing their thinking matters here. Let me show you how this plays out inside most organizations. Someone joins your team, sharp, motivated, full of perspective. They bring real thinking to the table, not just execution but judgment, great ideas, pattern recognition built from experience. Early on, they take the risk and speak up in meetings. They also flag something before it becomes a problem and suggest a better way. But the room moves on. No acknowledgement, no follow ups. Sometimes, and this is the most damaging version, someone more senior says the same thing 2 weeks later, and suddenly it's the most brilliant idea anyone has heard all quarter. Nobody planned that, but the signal that person received was clear. Your thinking is not the currency we trade in here. So they adjust and stop over delivering and start just delivering. They become reliable, pleasant, and completely checked out from the inside. That is the moment the organization lost them. The resignation letter 6 months later is just the paperwork catching up. Now, and this is important, I'm not here to just blame the leader, because when I look back at my own story, I can see two failures, not one. Yes, my manager at the time was not creating an environment where ideas were acknowledged or credited. That was real and that was costly. But I also never learned how to make my thinking impossible to ignore. I was presenting ideas once and retreating when they did not land. I had not yet developed the skill of making my value visible, of communicating not just what I was thinking, but why it mattered, what it would change, and why now was the moment to act on it. This is not weakness. This is a skill nobody taught me. And that is the real problem inside most organizations today. It is not just that leaders are missing their best people, it is that capable people have never been shown how to make themselves unmissable. And leaders have never been taught how to look for the signal underneath the silence. Both sides are failing each other, and nobody is talking about it. When organizations talk about talent loss, they focus on turnover. Someone leaves, so HR recruits someone, the role gets filled. That's a visible cost, visible solution. But that is not the biggest cost. The biggest cost is what happened before the resignation. The project risk that never got flagged, the process improvement that never got written up. Now, multiply that across several people, and you are not looking at a retention problem. You are now looking at an innovation problem or a culture problem. And here is what compounds it further. The other capable people on your team are watching. They see who gets heard, they see what gets rewarded, and slowly they learn the most dangerous lesson any organization can teach. The safest move here is to stay quiet and deliver what is asked. So instead of a culture of thinking, you quietly build a culture of careful silence. And 6 months later, in your organization, you book someone like me, a consultant, to figure out why innovation has slowed down. There are two things that need to change simultaneously, and most organizations only ever try to fix one. The first is on the leader's side. Start noticing who stopped talking, not who is causing the most problems, who went quiet. Because silence in a capable person is never neutral. It is always a signal. It is telling you something about the environment you built, not the person sitting in it. And when someone brings a real idea into the room, name it, give the credit, bring it back. Remember what she raised last week? I've been thinking about that. That one sentence travels further than any engagement survey or a free pizza ever will. The second is on the individual side. Stop waiting for the room to recognize you. Learn how to make your thinking visible before you open your mouth. Structure your ideas so they are impossible to walk past. Connect what you are suggesting to what the organization actually cares about right now. Make it easy for a decision maker to say yes. This is not about being louder, it is about being clearer. Because the goal is not to speak more, the goal is to make your value impossible to miss. That is what I call closing the invisible ceiling from both sides of the gap at the same time. Now, the best people rarely leave suddenly. They leave in stages. First, they stop sharing ideas. Then, they stop challenging decisions. Then, they do only what is required. Then, one day, you see the LinkedIn notification and wonder what happened. What happened started long before that notification. And the answer is almost never that they were not talented enough or committed enough or not the right fit. The answer is usually that nobody, not the leader, not the system, not the organization, ever closed the gap between what that person had to offer and what the room was actually able to see. I spent years on both sides of that gap, and everything I do now is built around one idea. Capability should never be invisible. If this landed for you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you have ever been that person who quietly stopped bringing their best thinking to work, tell me in the comments. Because the only way we fix this is if we start naming what is actually happening in the room. I will see you in the next one.